with AI and the opportunity that AI provides for creatives, it just takes everything to a whole other level. When someone is looking for a score for a trailer, and a recording artist may have some great idea, you can take that idea and actually turn it into a string section.
Welcome to Bobby Owsinski's Inner Circle. I'm Bobby Owsinski, and this is a show all about music, music production, and the music business. My guest in this episode is producer, technologist, and entrepreneur Marcus Bellringer Bell. Marcus has marketed, promoted, produced, remixed, and written for some of the world's superstars and brands. His list of credits include Nicki Minaj, Snoop Dogg, and Beyonce, as well as Discovery Network, Amazon, and Warner Brothers, just to name a few. He's also the CEO of Bellringer Productions, a music sync licensing and production company that operates a catalog of over 10,000 songs and 300 recording artists. Marcus has also published a #1 Amazon bestseller called The Bellringer Branding Bible, the 5 musician branding principles for singers, rappers, DJs, music producers, composers, writers, and recording artists. He's also on a mission to financially empower people with his Wealth and Impact Academy. I spoke with Marcus from a studio in Los Angeles via Zoom. Hello, Marcus.
Hello, hello. How are you?
Very well. It's nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you as well. Yeah, I'm very familiar with your work. When I saw the name in my calendar, I said, "Wait a minute. I think I read some of his books." I'm sure I read some of his books.
Well, I hope they helped you.
It did, actually. It did, especially being a futurist and someone that's looking at new technology and so forth. I see that you've been at that as well.
I try to stay as up to date as I can, and obviously you do too. And really, that's a good place to start, I think, because I really want to know about the background of Ravyn Lyte.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I know you are a Berklee School of Music graduate as well, and coming from a background of starting from classical and then learning jazz and then getting into pop music, one of the things that I noticed as it comes to dealing with AI, large language models, generative AI, is that that specialized knowledge makes a difference in regards to AI. And the more specialized knowledge you have in a particular area, in this case, music, then the better the results are, and the more abilities that you have in terms of production and songwriting and so forth, the more opportunities there are for the music creations and the musical expression. And Ravyn Lyte is an example of human creativity mixed with AI technology to express things that are uplifting for humanity, for fans, for listeners, for audiences. And that came out of me doing 100 songs last year. And I did 100 songs in 100 days. It's a 100-day challenge. Every year I take one, maybe a couple of challenges to do what I call intentional imbalances. So intentionally imbalanced, going all in on a particular area. And I've been doing that with AI as a result of that challenge. So midstream, the 100 songs, I lost my voice. And in that moment, I said, okay, I don't want to stop the challenge. There has to be a way I can model my voice and keep going. And at the time, I didn't have access to the singing AI tools to be able to create vocal singing models, but I was able to access the speaking ones, and I have had some recordings of me speaking. And so I trained a model and then did 10 songs of meditation music with my AI voice speaking over top of it.
Oh, I love it. What a great application for that.
Mm. In that moment, I said, wow, okay, what else is possible? So I just went into the rabbit hole. Not even a rabbit hole, it's kind of like Alex in Wonderland, if you will,
Yeah.
because the technology has been moving so quickly that within 3 months, I had cloned my singing voice and had songs with me singing in other languages, right? And the generative image creators, that technology has gotten better and better and better as well. And as soon as Midjourney came out, the day that it came out, I was using it with some friends of mine that are also technologists and musicians to create NFTs, right? So we were using it for that. And so when I looked at, well, wait a minute, you can create images and characters, you can create a speaking voice, you can create a singing voice, and you can generate music, and you can speak to audiences. You can do it in multiple languages, and we already have characters like the Disney princesses. We already have Barbie. We already have these characters. Well, why not create a conscious artist, right, in pop music that is carrying the message of mental health, carrying the message of uh, taking care of yourself, empowerment, and infusing that consciousness inside of the music project and having that be something out in the world for people to be able to interact with and in some cases be healed by because we put some frequencies and tones inside of the music that the more you listen to the music the better people feel.
As it should be, all music should be healing at some level, I would think, right?
Yeah, well, as music has so many different applications, right? It's kind of the I would I don't want to use a weapon analogy, but it's like a Swiss Army knife,
Yeah.
if you will. So you, as a creator, it's a useful tool for expression and even healing, right? And channeling emotions and ideas and ideals. As a listener, it can be used to reprogram the brain. Also, because we as human beings match emotions with characters and we identify in a unique way with music. Music has us time travel, right? It's one of those agents that you can hear a song and it puts you back in that moment. Time is activity.
Oh, yeah.
That moment, it can send you into the future. It can bring you present, right? It's one of those agents that can really impact us in that way. And then there's music that is intentional music, right? Music and sounds that are used uh, to heal cancer, right?
Yeah.
Tones that are used to help people with PTSD or depression or these types of things. And as a creative and someone that is curious about how we can use these tools, I've been exploring the world of all these different possibilities. And I was present to how connected we can be with others through music.
Yeah. absolutely true. Okay, now let me ask you, when you created Raven, did you get any pushback from other musicians, producers, creatives?
So Raven has been out in the world publicly for a month. And in that month, she has gained over 200,000 followers on across platforms, over 20,000 monthly listeners, over 100,000 streams, over
Wow.
55 million impressions. So she's going viral, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things that I've been doing, uh, I'm a member of the Recording Academy, and I've been over there, and I was invited to speak on a panel about new technology. And I noticed that there was a lot of fear there. And oftentimes when I go and speak and do presentations, my aim is to take people from fear to curiosity, because that's the approach that I took. And out of that approach, my creativity got unleashed in ways that I just did not expect. The ability to create orchestrations, right? And mix genres very easily, right? So so when I engage with other artists, right, that have a lot of concerns, and I do that regularly. Like I support a lot of people with their either their music careers, or how to monetize their music and all that. Like I'm a humanist, right? So I really care about humanity, and I in particular really care about the creative industries and recording artists and other artists inside of this AI revolution. And as someone that is a futurist and someone that recognizes, because I've been so deep into it, I've been involved in AI in some way for about 15 years now. I recognize that it's not what people think. It's not press the magic button and then you have a hit song.
Yeah,
Woo!
that's for sure.
No,
Yeah. And
no.
you're right. That's what they're afraid of.
Yeah, and it's not there. Um,
No.
it's it requires a lot of you in it for it to have create something meaningful. And again, that's where the specialized knowledge, and whether it's lyric writing or music vocabulary, comes into play. And what I've discovered with the Ravyn Lyte project is that it has created more community than I had even expected. So we've done like a writers camp, for example, for the project. And so all of a sudden, here's another vehicle for writers and producers, and we did a call out to about 600 recording artists that are part of my company for sync licensing,
Mhm.
and for their participation to come up with remixes and come up with ideas for the project. And so herein lies an opportunity to expand the possibilities that Ravyn Lyte is actually another kind of vehicle for not just creative expression, but for monetization for creatives, those that are curious.
Yeah, and that's something that's in the forefront of what you do. I know you're very concerned about helping others with their financial futures, for want of a better term. Wealth and Impact Accelerator and the
Yes.
boot camp. So, I mean, those are things that are helping other people to gain some financial independence being a creative. So, talk about that for a second.
Sure. So, Bobby, as you know, there are so many narratives in the music community and other creative communities. The whole starving artists conversation, the the narratives of, oh, you can't make money doing music, go get a real job, right?
Oh yeah.
Right, all of these, and that's been perpetuated from generation of artists to generation of artists to right all and so forth. And I challenge those narratives because I believe that if you create something of value and you're able to articulate that value, deliver that value, and powerfully exchange for that value, inside of that disappears scarcity conversations for your creative work. And so I support people in that, in breaking free of some of the narratives that keeps them from being able to realize their full potential, whether that's through their visibility for the things that they care about, whether that's a business, whether that's their music careers, whether that's their entrepreneurship, right? Creating visibility from that, using principles from entertainment, branding, these areas that storytelling, these areas that are important to deliver a message to a public, right? So that's infused inside of Wealth and Impact Accelerator, as well as the monetization. So I was someone that was caught into the narrative of this kind of starving artist narrative when I was younger, and living hand to mouth, gig to, you know, to needing to sometimes reach out to family members to, hey, I don't know if I'm going to make it this month,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To
It's
being
scary. Yeah.
$75,000 in debt by buying equipment and lessons and things like that, to getting on the opposite side of that, to being able to produce and build wealth. And along that process, I had mentors. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development and started gaining the tools to be able to communicate my value better. And the what I discovered was that the process that I went through was a process and something that could be systematized to help others, not just musicians, but other entrepreneurs, because I've been in business since I was 12 years old. So my first company, I started a record label when I was 12 years old. So yes, I've been a creative my entire life, but also I've been also an entrepreneur my entire life. And so those lessons in how do you build a successful business come out of process. And so when I created Wealth and Impact and Wealth and Impact Bootcamp, I said, okay, I was noticing that people were reaching out to me for advice, entrepreneurs in different fields, and and I a lot of the questions were the same. And they were the same questions that musicians would have about getting their things out into the marketplace. And they were the same questions that CEOs of companies were kind of dealing with in terms of their teams and harmonizing efforts and focusing their resources and things like that. So I said, okay, well, I wonder if I created something, would people be interested? And so I created this boot camp to support people, and hundreds of people started participating, and some people became financially independent. Others started getting on television, started getting on the covers of magazines, started living better lives, having more time freedom, being able to use things that I call time multipliers to have more space in their lives to do creative things, to spend time with their families, to vacation, to do all these things. And so, so I said, oh, wow, it's one thing you do something for yourself and you're able to oh, this has worked out. And it's another thing to be able to share that with others and then have that play out in their lives. And so as a humanist and someone that cares deeply about humanity, and I care deeply about compassion and empathy for myself and others, I feel like that's part of my legacy. Part of my legacy is not just the music. It's not just, characters like the Ravyn Lytes, right? Because here's a character that's been created with Ravyn Lyte that can live beyond me,
Yeah.
right? And like that, but also the tools that I have put in to programs like Wealth and Impact that people can use and that's impacting their businesses and impacting their families and creating the opportunity for generational wealth.
Very cool. And that's so important because, as you've noted, so many people have the tools, they just don't know how to use them.
Mm,
So I think it's really important that there's someone like you that is showing what's possible and how to get there.
mm.
And speaking about how to get there, you wrote a number one book, Bellringer Branding Bible. And I want to hear about this because I know from teaching people branding or trying to from the standpoint that whenever you mention branding to a musician, their eyes glaze over. And for most people, branding, oh, what is it? So tell me how you got past that.
That book came out of 5 years of conversation with my mother. So my co-author on the book is Carolyn Bell. And my mother was a national tennis champion back in the 60s. And she played tennis with Arthur Ashe and was a national tennis star who, played in the US Open and was Forrest Green back then. And she was a prodigy tennis player because from the moment it was the racket was in her hand to her being at Forest Green, the US Open, it was 2 years. It was a 2 year period.
Oh,
And so when she saw my music abilities when I started playing piano at 2 years old, she, as a tennis prodigy, recognized, okay, my son's a music prodigy. And so she was my manager, of course,
yeah, yeah.
when I was a kid. So I started making money in music when I was 6 years old. And so she would surround me with these mentors. And so when I started my record label when I was 12, my mentors were my first investors. Right. And so as someone that was like in the very early part of my career and then seeing what happened over time, I and she was a brilliant writer. So she wrote songs. We wrote songs together when I was a kid. Even back before I was born, she had written lyrics for a song that came out on vinyl back then, and she just had the gift to write. So she would write grants and speeches, and so she raised money, millions of dollars for nonprofit organizations with her writing abilities. And I saw in the marketplace, well, wait a minute, there's not really something to guide artists on their own development, right? So I saw that missing, and a couple of recording artists that I was coaching at the time, I had put together some things that were supporting them in terms of branding and all of that. And my mother said, "Hey, you really should write a book." I said, "Well, we should write it together because because you've been a part of this journey
Yeah.
before I was born, and you're a great writer." And it gave us an activity to do as well. And so for 5 years, she interviewed me, and the branding Bible, the Bellringer Branding Bible, actually is a chapter out of that bigger book that we were working on.
I see.
And I had a business partner, Shalita Burke, actually, who's a recording artist and technologist, and we did one of the first music NFTs many years ago in the pop R&B world. And she said, "Marcus, you got to put the book out." And so I said, "Okay." Well, let's do it. So that book actually is one of the first books that was an NFT. I don't talk about this a lot, but it's actually that book, people could have purchased it with Ethereum, and we had set it up for it. So I think I'm pretty sure it's like the first book NFT, that book.
I've never heard of one, so
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. And I hadn't heard of one back then either, because we were like looking for examples, and it's like, no, actually, we're making this. This has never been done before. We're making this. And that book, the way I designed it, was very much how I would have conversations with recording artists. And I believe in the Socratic method, because once you answer the questions for yourself, then you own it. So the first half of the book is context, right? About branding, right? Using three references, how you can ethically borrow, to, what to look for, how to think about it, all of that. And then the second part of the book, Bobby, it's 100 questions. And as an artist goes through and answers those questions, they become a brand.
that's a good way to
So
do it.
yeah. So that book is still in the top 100 of music business books. Back then, I didn't do a book tour or anything like that. It just started spreading, in the music communities and other communities. I had a CEO call me one day and said, "Hey, Marcus, I read your book. This is not a book for artists. This is a book for anybody." Right? Yes, artists, but I'm using this book for my own personal branding.
Oh,
So when you talk about branding, I think that it's universal. It doesn't matter what field you're in, you are already a brand. Now you can be unintentional about it and have other people say what you are and who you are and what they believe you are, or you can be intentional about it and establish yourself, your look, what it is that you communicate, how you communicate, what are the things that make you you, what are the things that aren't you, that don't want to be a part of, right? What parties do you not want to go to? What do you want to be left out of? What do you want to be included in, that is in alignment with who you are as an expression of your humanity?
yeah, and that's one of those things that if you're wise enough and you live long enough, you should be able to figure it out for yourself to some degree. But, let's cut to the chase already. That's what you're doing. It's like, well, yeah, you don't want, to keep on trying and trying and trying subconsciously trying to get there and not. So it's better to be intentional about it. Yeah.
Yeah, listen,
Yeah.
listen, we can't see our own eyebrows. I know we're
Yeah.
we see through the video, but we can't see our own eyebrows. It takes sometimes a mentor or someone that has specialized knowledge to help us see ourselves. And so that book is like one of the tools, and Wealth of Impact is another tool, and right. So there are like all these different access points to support people and becoming more them. And inside of becoming more you, there's an opportunity for you to make more impact, for you to become more visible, for you to make more money, for you to be able to help more people. Because the more known you are, the more people you can help.
Yeah. Tell me about your company that does sync.
Bellringer Productions. It started unintentionally. um,
Happens a lot with you.
I'm doing something, and then here emerges something else. I was in a recording studio working with an artist that's a celebrity in Europe, and her manager noticed how fast I was working in the studio, and he pulled me to the side. He said, "You know what, Marcus? It's like I haven't seen anybody work like you work and come up with the product that you come up with." And um because I have like systems. I think in a systematic way. And when I'm working with a recording artist, my aim is to get them in flow state.
Mm.
So once you're in flow state, you're singing beyond your capabilities. You're playing beyond your capabilities. You're doing things that, right? So oftentimes new artists used to be sent to me, and they would do things that weren't in their skill ability because they were in flow state. And then they would, before their record got released or whatever, they would train up to that capacity,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because once you're in that flow, then all kinds of things are possible. So the manager noticed this and said, "You probably have a lot of music." And he was right. I had like thousands of songs at that point because I started songwriting when I was 8 years old. And because when I was at Berklee School of Music and after, I was doing like 10 songs a day, like literally 10 songs a day. I had artists come, I don't know, I was in a moment of exploration and developing myself as a producer. And so my days would look like a rapper would come in, then I'll do a pop song, and then I do a country song, and then I do another R&B song, and then I'd work on one of my songs for something. And then, right, so I had developed this capacity to, one, sound like any producer, two, because I treated production and producing like learning jazz, so I could hear everything that was going on, right,
Yep.
and be able to imitate. You know, one master had given me this. There's imitation, then you get to emulation, kind of like to innovation. And
Mm.
so when I was in the imitation phase, I was anything I heard that excited me, I'd imitate that, right? And so there I developed this capacity, like, hey, can you do a song that's like Beyonce? Yeah, I actually, yes, I can do something that's like Beyonce. So um so this manager noticed all kind of this capacity and said, I want to come by and maybe I can take some of this music and pitch it for you. And so he came by, he stopped at 100 songs and took those songs. And next thing I know, he got me on MTV and and all these different networks and so forth. Come a little bit of time later, and at that time, I was really pursuing being on people's albums. So I wasn't even thinking about TV and film at the time. He was just taking whatever I gave him. I gave him DVDs of like hundreds and thousands. Like I probably gave him 1,000 things, really.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? Just I kept giving him DVDs of filled with music, and he kept getting them placed. And then one day, I got this statement from BMI. I'll never forget. My rent was $600, and the statement, that quarter statement, was like $10,000. And I said, wait a minute, I could almost pay my whole rent for the whole year with just my royalties. And I said, hold on a second. I need to reconsider
Yeah,
my
yeah, right.
time allotment.
Yeah.
Right? There's some opportunity here in TV and film. So he ended up becoming head of music for a network. And he reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to do a network deal with us? And then I said, well, let me think about it. Yes. And from there, he also said, I also want to introduce you to the other music supervisors who were using your music. And I'm doing an email introduction to you for you to directly interact with them. And I've already sent the emails like that. And that's how my sync licensing business started.
Wow.
Gary Ford started my sync licensing business with that one move, that one moment. of generosity, of abundance. And he's passed away now, but that moment was one of the moments that changed my life because it opened up the door, not just for me, but for friends of mine that had music that weren't monetizing, that had great material, friends that were on labels that got dropped from labels or were with publishing companies that got dropped from publishing companies, and they had all this music that was sitting, like I had music that was just sitting, and then given that an opportunity to at least be heard, the opportunity to actually be used, and so forth. And that's how Bellring Productions got into the sync licensing world. And now we're supporting over 600 recording artists from different genres, some Grammy Award winners, some Emmy Award winners, and so forth. And it's something that's very exciting to be able to just kind of be a pipeline for creatives in that way. And with AI and the opportunity that AI provides for creatives, it just takes everything to a whole other level because now when someone is looking for, I don't know, a score for a trailer, right? And a recording artist may have some great idea for, oh, this will be great. Um, but I can't get a screen section in.
Mm.
And I have a course that I just launched a few days ago, actually, um, called AI Music Bootcamp that shows people how to use AI. And whether you're a musician or not a musician, really, anyone can use it and participate in this course. But you can take that idea and sing it and actually turn it into a string section,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And then pursue that idea. Um, and so that's the beautiful thing that the new technology has empowered us with. And there's a pipeline, right, to have that actually be out in the world.
Very cool, Marcus. Very cool. I'm so happy for your success and the way it's happened, and the fact that you have such a good heart that you like to bring people along with you.
Mm.
That's unusual.
Well, that's a part of you too. I recognize as a teacher, as someone that has created so many staples through your writing, right? In the music industry. I mentioned before I've read some of your books when I was a developing, music producer and so forth, trying to figure things out. And these are ways that we are able to be immortal, really. So our books enable us to live beyond this present moment, the 3D, right?
Yeah.
And so does the work that you're doing now with these podcasts, right? This enables these conversations that you're having, bring community, bring people and specialized knowledge to people that wouldn't normally be in these kinds of conversations.
I've always looked at myself sort of as a music archivist, from the
Mm.
standpoint that there are so many techniques, and this is in my books, and that's why I always include interviews in them most of the time. I'm trying to make sure that the techniques of some of the legendary people in their business that are behind the scenes, the producers, engineers, etc., that they don't just disappear into the ether. So I want to make sure that they're cataloged in some way, and that maybe my books can help in some small way in doing that.
It absolutely helps. I was thinking about, what is it to live forever? And through writing is one way to be able to live forever. So
Mm.
those interviews is, that you have in your books, um, really make a difference for people's legacies. And, it goes beyond, I think, probably what we even imagine as we're in this conversation about it. But I'm featured in a couple of books, and I think about my 9-year-old daughter, right? And the the conversations that live in books that she's completely not aware of, right? Or a podcast like this that one day when I'm gone, there'll be an archive, and we're developing an archive, basically that's coming out of these kinds of conversations where I've created a model that's me. So right now, if I were to pass away, as on this call, um, my daughter can go and speak to my AI that has the collection of all my writings, all the interviews I've ever done, all the podcasts I've done, all the courses I've done, all of my ideas and ideals and thoughts and all of that. And so she can interact. So, when she becomes older, she'll start asking it questions and be able to have a response that's representative of what I care about, right? And my consciousness.
I think that's a product. I have a friend actually that's developing another product that would be very synergistic with that. So at some point we should talk
Oh,
if you
okay.
decide to go in that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
direction.
Be happy to.
Yeah. Last question, Marcus. And thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed speaking with you and I enjoyed finding out more about you and what you do.
Hmm.
What's the best piece of business advice? Oh, best piece of advice in general that you either learned along the way or maybe somebody imparted to you?
I would say recognize that you are the creator of your reality and that the world is a reflection of your consciousness and is not out there, it's in here, right? That's the I think if someone were to embrace that idea that you are responsible and you own it all, the good that happens, the challenges that happen, the opportunities that happen, right? You own it all because you are the creator of it all. Then how powerful a manifester, a creator, a designer of life, a designer of things that help others, that help self and others, like that. I could speak on that for probably an hour, but I really believe that. I really believe that we have the possibilities. We are designed to be creators. And when that's embraced, we can have a life of wealth and impact.
That's great. That's a good place to stop, I think. Marcus, it was so much of a pleasure for me to meet you. This is
Oh, it's
great.
great to meet you too.
And I hope we can continue this talk at some point in time down the road.
Yeah, would love to.
Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. You can also learn all about the latest in music, audio, and production news, and find out about openings for my latest online classes at bobbyowsinski.com. This is Bobby Owsinski. I'll see you next time.